Good morning, good morning. Happy Monday, and it's a new week, new money as always. Welcome to another edition of the Spin Zone. I'm your host, Spin Doc, here on behalf of the Daily Bread Network. If you aren't already, please do subscribe to Daily Bread Network on YouTube. Gets you access to all of our best content. We got NFL stuff out there, we got MLB, all of these shows are there. Everything that we put out is out there. So if you like what you hear as well, please do smash that like button, share, repost the stream. We do appreciate the love. If you're not already, follow me at SpinDoc Sports on X for all of my latest stuff. So, we got three pitchers to talk about today. There's a bunch of pitchers going that we could talk about. So, if we don't get to the one that you talked about or that you wanted to talk about, please do throw them in the chat. I'll give you my high level overview. Also, got some other looks, totals, and sides. We got some pretty decent sized news from NFL training camp and some preseason observations over the weekend to get to. So, we got a whole bunch to get to. And rather than preview the review the entire weekend, since there weren't any shows, let's just get on with the business of the day. So, three pitchers to talk about right off the bat, and I'll also give you some other leans, sides, totals, money lines, whatever for MLB, and some NFL training camp looks because I know fantasy drafts are starting soon, and I got a couple things for you about that when we get to the NFL section. But this is a baseball show, so we will talk about baseball. And the first pitcher that we do want to talk about today is Mr. Logan Gilbert. Logan Gilbert off of the Mariners Sunday night baseball last night. Logan Gilbert, the right-hander, is striking guys out at a 34.3% clip, walking guys at a 6.4% clip. He heads to Philadelphia and gets a returning Phillies team from Washington. This line is set right about where I thought it would be, at a pretty evenly juiced 6.5. So, couple things about Logan Gilbert is, first thing that I see is that Gilbert is 6-4 in his last 10 to this number, but when he's set at a 6.5, he is only 3-3. He's averaging 7 strikeouts per game, both for the season and in his last 10. So you have basically right at average at the moment. So we have to break it down into the more detailed metrics, and this is where. And these are some of the things where, especially if you're new or first time to this show, these are things that the trend sheets won't tell you, because the basic information is what you can find on a trend sheet. Here's what you find when you dig, is that first thing is that Gilbert has only thrown 90 pitches 4 times in his last 11 starts. He's averaging 88.2 pitches per start. The Mariners have been very, very adamant. Their pitching coach and their team, they're very adamant with both him, all three of them actually, him, Kirby, and Wu, is that if they're in an inning and they're going to go over 90, they let them do it and they let them finish if they can. If they're not, and if they feel that the next inning, based on average pitches per, is going to take him over that 90 mark, they're not going to let him do it. So the Yankees pitching staff is the exact same way. There's a few other pitching staffs that are the exact same way. You have a few managers like out in San Francisco with Logan Webb and Robbie Ray, where they let them throw like 300 pitches and let them pitch until they can't go anymore. But that is not what Seattle is. Seattle, I mean, Gilbert, Wu, and Kirby, we've been on in VIP. We've been on all three of those guys multiple times. So I listened to the Seattle announcers and the Seattle media guys quite a bit. And first of all, by the way, if you have MLB TV and you're watching a Mariners game, you got to listen to the Seattle broadcast, because they have this Aussie announcer who's so cool. It just sounds so cool to hear an Aussie announcing American baseball. But beside the point, they've been talking about not wanting to throw these guys' arms out by the postseason, and they've been doing it by limiting them from a pitch standpoint all year. In fact, in the last 2.5 months, Gilbert's only thrown 100 pitches one time, and that was when he was in an inning that they let him finish where he went over 100. So you're probably going to get 85 to 90 pitches from Gilbert. Gilbert, with his outs set at about 17.5 right now, you're probably only going to get, so he can only throw about 15.5 pitches per inning to get to this mark to give him a chance to hit this 7+. Now, he's got a few things going for him, because when you look at this Phillies lineup, which right now the projected is 5 lefties and 4 righties. Gilbert does have a disparity in how he gets lefties, 33-7 versus 25-9. But the bigger point here is that if you go over to the far left and look at, so league average for swinging in the zone is 66.9%. So basically 2 out of every 3 pitches MLB hitters swing at in the zone. Now go over and look at how many of these Phillies are at or below league average. And we have Schwarber, we have Realmuto. Baum is pretty close, so he counts. Marsh, pretty close, so he counts. And Stott. So you have over half this lineup that swings right at or below league average in the zone. Why does this matter? Well, it matters a lot for Logan Gilbert, because number one, he spends over 50% of his time in the zone, which is about 1.6% above league average. But the bigger point here is, look at the bottom right. When Logan Gilbert gets ahead, and he often throws strikes on his first pitch. His first pitch strike percentage is, as you can see under FPS at the bottom, league average is 61.1. Logan Gilbert is all the way up at 69.8. It's actually one of the highest amounts for regular starters. When he gets ahead of hitters, 48.6% strikeout percentage. More specifically, when he gets 0-1 on any hitter, whether it be taking, swinging, missing, foul ball, doesn't make a difference. 43% strikeout percentage. So you have a 43% chance of K'ing, whether you're at home, on the road, lefty, righty, doesn't matter, when you go 0-1 against Gilbert. So you have 5 of 9 guys that take pitches in the zone. Even Kepler isn't that high above. So you only have 3 guys that swing in the zone: Trey Turner, Bryce Harper, and Castellanos. So I'll come back to those guys in a second. But if you're going to take against this guy, you're setting yourself up, especially if you're going to take when you get 1 strike. And when you look deeper into the metrics, you see that Schwarber, Stott, Marsh, and kind of sort of Realmuto all take at a reasonable rate when they get down 0-1 or on 1 strike. So you put yourself in an 0-2 hole against this man, his strikeout percentage is over 50%. So the Phillies, the Phillies have the right mix to strike out against Logan Gilbert. The reason why they do is because of the take that I talked about and the chase. Now go over to the right and now go right next to it and look at chase. And league average is 28-1. So we have Castellanos, we have Realmuto, we have Harper, and we have Turner. All are over MLB average in chase percentage, how often they swing outside the zone. Now you look at Logan Gilbert. Logan Gilbert allows 39.6% to guys who chase. That is absurd. That's better than Tarek Skubal. It's better than Zach Wheeler. It's actually one of the best marks in Major League Baseball. So if you're going to put yourself in an 0-2 hole, or a situation where you're going to have to chase against this man, you're going to put yourself in trouble. So right off the bat, the sum total of Gilbert's pitching profile compared with the Phillies' hitting profile tells us that we do have the potential to get 7 strikeouts. So, but the reason why the line is set as it is and why we're not at a 7.5 or crazy juice is the first point that I mentioned: 88 pitches per start. That usually means 5 to 6 innings. And what that also usually means is that Gilbert cannot have one of those 20 pitch 1K or no K innings for this to work. So what he's been kind of getting in the habit of is pumping strikes early and racking up his strikeouts. Then as hitters adjust and start swinging early, then he starts throwing the breaking stuff early. Now, when you're trying to throw the breaking stuff early, this can be a patient Phillies team, so that can limit your strikeouts. So those things kind of even each other out, especially with the fact that he's probably not going to throw 100 pitches or go like 7, 8, whatever innings. So that's where the line comes from, and that's not why it's more juice. So I think that the line is correct. Now we go hitter by hitter. And what I see for this one is guys that I think that are very high strikeout candidates: Schwarber for sure, And I mean, we can like joke about how like, well, Schwarber always Ks, but the metrics say that he does. He takes a ton in the zone. He swings 4% under league average, and he makes very, very poor zone contact. Now, when he does, he hits the ball a ton, but he makes poor zone contact. And look at that past history: 7 strikeouts in 12 plate appearances against Logan Gilbert. I have him for a 1+. I have Schwarber for a 1+. There's not a lot of value on Schwarber striking out one time, because the chances are pretty good that he's going to do it. In fact, one strikeout for Schwarber right now is -700 on DraftKings, but there's unfortunately not value for him striking out 2 times, because -105 for a guy to strike out twice, there's no value on that. You're going to need at least +145 to make that work. So unfortunately, the like a Schwarber strikeout prop is not going to work. Now, one guy that I think could work for multiple strikeouts would be Brandon Marsh. Brandon Marsh, 2 strikeouts is +230. Marsh does not have a high strikeout percentage over his last 15 or 30 days, but he struck out 6 out of 15 times already to Logan Gilbert. He has great zone contact, but he swings right at about league average, and he gets first pitch strikes at a higher rate than league average as well. Again, when you go down 0-1 against this man, when he gets a first pitch strike against you, your chance to strike out goes up from, well, what's his away strikeout percentage? 29.9 to 43.3. When you go down 0-2, it's over 50. And in some cases, for some hitters, it's probably closer to 60. So if you're going to take in the zone, it doesn't really make a difference what your contact percentage is. This man can get you. So Brandon Marsh, 2+ strikeouts at +230. I can see that as maybe having some value. Now, when I go down the rest of the lineup, even though the past history would not suggest it, because Harper does swing aggressively in the zone, I do see the potential for Bryce Harper to strike out. He's got a ton of chase, so if Gilbert wants to throw sliders and splitters to him, there's a chance he could chase him. And Harper has had, even since coming back, his contact metrics have improved, but his chase contact has still been really, really poor. So I have Schwarber, I have Harper, I have Marsh, and I have Stott down here, who Gilbert's already gotten 3 out of 7 times. You can see his zone swing percentage, 54.9%. If you're going to stand there and take strike one, Logan is literally just going to rear back and just throw 97 mile an hour fastballs right down the gut. And so if you're going to stand there, he has the potential to just get strike after strike after strike. He's not afraid. He's not afraid to challenge guys, and he's not afraid to just go not quite dead red, but like up or slightly in, and just go, here's a fastball, and I'm going to challenge you to swing. That's why in the early parts of the game, that's why you see him with stuff like 4 innings pitched and like 26 pitches, right? Because he does force the guys to put the ball in play and swing. And we have 5 out of 9 Phillies hitters that don't swing in the zone. And we even have Kepler over here who kind of sort of. So where all this is going is that if you can get any one of the high strikeout guys twice, so that being Schwarber, that being Harper, maybe, that being Marsh, he starts at the bottom of the lineup, but Gilbert usually goes 6 innings, which means he'll face him 2, possibly 3 times, or Stott, then this becomes a very, very easy path to 7. The other thing that I think of here is that if he can get one of the few guys that he's not technically supposed to, so like, for example, Trey Turner, high zone swing rate, high zone contact percentage, but he also has a high chase rate. So that's why I couldn't put Trey Turner at a minimum. If you can get Trey Turner, if you can get Baum, who he's gotten 3 out of 8 times already, even though Baum has great contact metrics, but he takes in the zone. So I think that we're right where it is right now. The line is right. So what I'd rather do is wait for the lineup. And if this is the exact lineup that they put out in this order, if I can get plus money on an over 6.5, I'm probably going to be interested for a half a unit. What I'm more interested in doing is pulling this one down to 6, because I for sure see 6 here, and trying to pair it with something to get a better price. So now, if the Phillies, if you want the over, the guys that you don't want in are you're probably not going to want, like, it would be better if Kepler weren't in. It would actually be better if Otto Kemp were in, or um, uh, well, I guess Marchand, but that would be in for Real Muto. So probably if Otto Kemp is in this lineup instead of Kepler, or if Otto Kemp is in instead of Baum, like, please, maybe something like that, then this becomes a very, very easy path to 7, because Otto Kemp has a whole bunch of metrics that favor him striking out against Logan Gilbert. That would be the only change that I could see. Maybe Marchand catches today. That might be true, and that would be a slight bump. It's not as big as having Kemp in the lineup, because Wilson, with Gilbert being a righty, Wilson won't bat today. So I think that the 6.5 is where it should be. I like 6 for sure. I also like pairing 6 with something else to get the juice down. And I think that maybe you can do a little sprinkle on Brandon Marsh, 2+ strikeouts, if he happens to be in the lineup. I mean, Schwarber striking out twice is like the chalk play, but at -105 for a guy to strike out twice, unfortunately, there's not a lot of value in that. And obviously Schwarber striking out once at -700, even though I'm certain it's going to happen, that the betting us -700 is just absolutely silly. So, all right, we got a few in the chat here who I'll go to before we move on. Want to say what's up to Lauderdale Owens. Thank you for joining. Appreciate you. I had a good weekend, actually. A lot of family stuff, which is good, because my son's going to college on Friday, so we're doing a lot of family stuff before then. So thank you. Thoughts on Ray under 17.5 outs? I'll come back to Robbie Ray at the end. I'm not covering him as a pitcher, but I will come back to him at the end. And also thank you to Gus Swayze for reposting the stream. Thank you, Gus. Appreciate you, and appreciate you doing that. So, all right. The next guy that we're going to talk about is Mr. Paul Skeens. Paul Skeens, the righty, is striking guys out at a 28.6% clip, walking guys at an 8.2% clip. He gets the Blue Jays. We have an over 6.5 at great plus money. We have a Blue Jays tax in place today, but I don't think it's entirely a Blue Jays tax. I'll explain why in a second. And we have, which would mean a heavily juiced under of -1, minus a bunch, actually. I think it's that way pretty much everywhere right now. You have -160 is the best number that I could find. All right, what do we do with Paul Skeens today? Well, first thing is Skeens is 5-5 to this number, and when he's set at 6.5, he's 3-4 over his last 10. Now, he has no history against the Blue Jays, so because he hasn't faced them yet. And the Blue Jays typically get taxed, or guys against the Blue Jays typically get taxed. If it's a higher strikeout pitcher, they'll typically juice the other side, the underside. Or if it's a lower strikeout pitcher or a medium strikeout pitcher, like I'm just pulling guys out of the air, like guys that are always set at 4.5, just the standard, like Michael Wacha or, Tawan Walker, or just average run-of-the-mill, middle-of-the-rotation guys that are almost always set at a 4.5 for strikeouts. They'll just bump them down to 3.5. So they didn't bump Skeens' strikeouts down to 5.5. I don't think they could, because then they'd be pretty overweight on the over. Now, they did bump the under and juice it very heavily, and that's the Blue Jays tax that you get. I do think that if this game were in Toronto, I do think I very much would think that this would be down at a 5.5 with heavy juice on the over. But we're in Toronto, but we're in Pittsburgh, so we juice the other side and we keep it at 6.5. Now, a couple things with Skeens. The first thing that jumps out to me is, at least as of right before I came on the air, there was no outs prop. And at least according to Kevin Roth WX, which if you're not following him, you should, best MLB weather guy there is, there's no weather concerns or no potential, at least at the moment, for a delay or late start or what have you. And so what this could mean is that the team could be starting to limit Skeens. I don't know that for a fact. You hear rumors and rumblings. The team has said stuff like they're going to do what's right for him and what's right for them. And it's basically the non-answer that you would normally get. And And so the point remains, though, Skeens is only 12 innings under his career high, which was last year when you combine AAA and MLB. So 12 more innings, and he's at his career high. Now, that's not like a metric ton. Like, it's not like he's thrown 200 innings, but he is a young guy, and he is the future of this pitching staff. And the Pirates are not seriously in playoff contention. So at some point, you have to figure that there's going to be some kind of limiting for this man. Skeens has also only thrown 89.1 pitches per start for his last 8. So he's not going over 90. Maybe if he's hot and he's mowing them down and he gets to an inning and it takes him over 90, it'll happen. But Paul Skeens is not going to be throwing 90 to 100 pitches. And so this is why I always chuckle, because like when a pitcher like Skeens or like somebody in his boat gets pulled at like 83 pitches, and people on X or Twitter start being like, Vegas made the call, and like, oh, the shit's rigged, and shut up. Like, shut up, because you're stupid. That's not what happened. What happened is these guys don't give an F. Well, unless you're a Cleveland pitcher, but that's a tongue-in-cheek different story. Don't care about gambling. Only a few Cleveland pitchers do. But they don't care about gambling. They care about protecting their asset. They're going to protect their guy. And so protecting Paul Skeens is in the Pirates and everybody's best interest right now. So you have to understand that at some point, Paul Skeens is going to be limited, and not that he's going to like only be able to like throw like 3 innings, but they're probably going to limit him to 75 to 85 pitches per start. And they're not going to just throw his arm out when you're not in a playoff chase. It's just not going to happen. So you have to be prepared for that. So if this game does go off and go to the wire with no outs prop, and I'm going to check Roth again for weather concerns. If there's no weather that's in the forecast, then you have to assume that it's possible that they might just throw Skeens out there for 5 innings or 75 pitches and get him off the stage. So that's what I'm operating under the belief is probably going to happen right now. So the question is, can Skeens get 7 strikeouts in that scenario? And against this team might be tough. So one thing with Skeens, with spending 50.5% of his time in the zone, is I do look for zone swing and zone contact. Now, if you want the over for this one, this is not the lineup for you, because as you can see, only 2 are under in zone contact, Springer and Varsho. Now, Varsho, as we saw yesterday too, can be a walking strikeout. I actually really hope they move him down in the lineup, because not only did he not make contact against Evaldi yesterday, he didn't even come close. Like he didn't even touch the ball. I think maybe he had a few foul tips. So Varsho had a horrific series. So if Varsho is not in the lineup, and there's a whole bunch of even Lopper Fido, I'd rather have in the lineup at this point than Dalton Varsho, it becomes an even taller mountain to climb to get to 7, because Springer, look at George Springer, who's projected to lead off, you might think he's a strikeout candidate, 79.1% zone contact, which is under league average. Problem is that it's been a tale of 2 halves. To start the season, he was like down in the 50s and like high 50s, low 60s. Since the All-Star break, he's been in the mid 80s. So you have to really break it down and say, okay, that averages out to 79.1, but he's been swinging. He's been a lot more like the George Springer of old. If I remember right, he was even a little bit nicked up to start the year. So you have a guy who swings often and makes contact. You have Barger, Vladdy, Bichette. And then you have projected in the 6, 7, 8 holes, Kirk, Lukes, and Clement, who are all in the high 80s. So if Skeens is going to try to elongate his start by throwing more pitches in the zone, you do have the potential for a lot of quick at bats and a lot of quick quick contact. So that's where I would look for this one. I wish there was an outs prop, because I might even be willing to take an over if it's at a 15.5 or a 16.5, because that tells me that they're probably going to limit him to 5 innings. And then that also tells me if the Blue Jays are going to swing like super aggressively in the zone, as over half of them do, and they have a lot of high zone contact guys, my story for this game is that Skeens is going to throw a lot of pitches in the zone to extend his start. Blue Jays are going to make contact, put it in play, blah, blah, blah. So from a strikeout perspective, I have to at least have a lean on the under. Now, my problem with this one is twofold. Number one, Skeens can be lethal at home. Number two is that if Skeens does decide to throw more of his chase stuff, this is where you can get the Blue Jays. And I don't say that because of the overall chase contact, because as you can see, only 1 of 9 hitters, and that being Springer, who's been hot lately, is under league average with chase contact. The problem becomes is that when you look at the overall MLB average, only 2 guys in this lineup don't chase, Springer and Vlad Guerrero. Vlad will be tough to get. Springer has been tough to get, but if Skeens is going to throw a bunch of chase stuff, if he's going to go splitter, sweeper, and even curve, which isn't one of his main 3, but it's in his repertoire, if he's going to throw a bunch of those pitches, his start would be a little more limited because sometimes when you throw a chase pitch, it's just uncompetitive and you waste a pitch for it. But the Blue Jays, that is how you strike out the Blue Jays. You strike out the Blue Jays by making them chase. And even though their overall contact is higher, when they chase this often, like you look at Bo Bichette, you look at Clement, you look at Jimenez, you look at Barger, 28.1% league average, anything over 30 is a lot. So like Bo and Clement chase all the time. And so both of those guys could be had if Skeens decide to throw his chase stuff. Overall, unless I can get an outs prop and unless I can get some kind of semblance for how the Pirates want this start to go from a pitch and an inning standpoint, this is probably going to be a pass for me. There's a lot of risk on both sides because, again, if Skeens comes out and it was just like, I'm just going to try to get as many of these guys down as I can because he's Paul Skeens and he's that awesome and he can do that. Versus then he can get a lot of them to chase and rack strikeouts up. If he decides to just pitch to contact to elongate his start, which is where an outs prop would help, is that then you might see a lot of quicker at bats, quicker outs, etc. So Skeens is an iffy proposition on both sides for me. With so many other guys going, I think that there's a lot better places to look for today. So a couple things from the chat. Cover King, speaking of Skeens, is on Skeens under. K is at -135. And on Flaherty over 5.5. I'll talk about him in a second. Happy Monday to Mom Who Bets. So thank you for joining and welcome in, welcome back. All right. So that's Paul Skeens. Last but not least for the day is a guy where the line says he smacks, but I don't know if I agree. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to. I'm not sure that I like the over on this one at all. I'll explain why. Spencer Strider, the righty, striking guys out at a 26.9% clip, walking guys at a 9.4% clip. Keep that number in mind. He does face the White Sox tonight, who, as I've said many times before, when they have their full regular lineup in, that lineup, including the guy that's projected to be in the 2-hole tonight, Chase Meadroth, they're a bad team and they don't score, but they also have the potential to not strike out. We have a 7.5 for Spence at +115 with an under at heavy juice. Okay, let's talk us some Spencer Strider. So first thing is Strider is 4-6 in his last 10, 8+. He's also 3-3 when he's been lined at this number. Not enough past history, just a handful of appearances against the projected White Sox hitters. Now, the thing with Strider is if you look at his overall zone percentage, so when you're a guy that really only throws 2 pitches, I mean, the curveball is listed as his third one, but really it's 4-seamer slider. And Strider's 4-seamer has been up and down on velo. He hasn't consistently hit that 98, 99 mark. It's actually more in the 95 to 96 mark, which the difference between those two is just gigantic. Now, what you have is you have a guy that has to get people to chase with his slider, which can run way out of the zone and low. So you have a 46.8% zone percentage. That has led to his 9.4% walk percentage, because for his career, his actual walk percentage is much lower than that. But if you're not going to be able to get guys to just whiff with the fastball, and I talked about this last week for those that watched, where what I was so impressed with Jacob deGrom is that with his velo back, deGrom has had moments where he needs to get a strike on a guy or he needs to get a guy out at the plate, and he just rears back. I mean, it's like the scene in at the end of Major League Two where Rick Vaughn tells Parkman, like, here comes, like, I'm going to throw you a fastball and you're not going to hit it, basically. Like, no, that's what deGrom does. And he just rears back and blazes 99 in there. Strider hasn't been able to do that much this year. Every now and then he touches 98, 99, but to be able to just call on that when you need it, deGrom can do that. Strider hasn't been able to do it. So when you don't, you have to get guys to chase outside the zone, and his slider often runs way outside the zone. Why that's important in this one, if you look at the chase rate on the left for the White Sox, how many guys chase? 2, Benintendi at league average. So you have 3 chasers, so 3 guys who chase outside the zone. The White Sox are a patient team. They have a lot of whiff about them, as you can see over on the contact metrics, which I'll get to in a moment, but actually chasing outside the zone, not a lot. 3 out of the 9. And the other 6 that don't, it's not like 28.1% is league average. It's not like we're talking these guys are at like 27.5 or 26.8. You can see 23, 21, 22, 24, 18, 25. These guys do not chase. And so my problem here with Spencer Strider is that if this is the lineup that we're going to get, and I've watched this White Sox team before, and not only do they not chase, they are adamantly not going to chase. So Strider's going to have to get him with a 4-seam fastball. Now, which guys can he get with his just normal 4-seam fastball, assuming, because he hasn't for a while been able just to consistently run it up in the 98, 99 area? Well, Tauchman has a 25% whiff percentage. That could be one. Montgomery and Robert are chasing, so they're already going to strike out anyway. Look at the rest of the lineup. 22.5% is league average. There aren't that many. I mean, Teal, maybe. So you have Montgomery, you have Robert, you have maybe Tauchman, and you have Teal. And that gets you to about 4, maybe 5. So where do the other 3 come from? And my point here is that Strider is going to have to get some of these guys who don't chase to chase, because when you chase against this man, his slider is wicked and has been wicked, and he gets a lot of whiff. He gets 43. He only allows 43.1% chase contact, which is 12% under league average. So if you're going to chase against this guy, it's not going to be good for you. But Strider spends so much time outside the zone and trying to throw that chase stuff. He even throws a slider early. And so when he gets behind, you can see in the bottom right, he only gets a 14.9% strikeout percentage. So I'm not trying to dump on Spencer Strider, and I'm not saying run to the window and bet an under on the White Sox on the road. But what I'm saying is that if you look at the White Sox strikeout percentage and metrics over the last little while, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever, you'll probably see that it's up, and you might think over. The problem becomes, though, Chase Meadroth was out of the lineup. There were also a number of games where Vargas was out of the lineup, doesn't chase, has high contact. There were also a few games where Chiaro was out of the lineup, doesn't chase, high contact. This is my point, and this is why using trends is something that can get you in a lot of trouble, because you look at trends like that, and it looks like Spencer Strider is going to mow the White Sox down. But he's not facing the White Sox team that has been at the plate over the last few weeks. Now, Meadroth did have a strikeout in each of his first 3 games back from injury over the weekend, but that is his first 3 games back. Overall, once he's back in form, you can see the contact metrics for the year are pretty dang good. So with Spencer Strider, can't believe I'm even saying this, that I'm leaning on an under for this one, especially at 7.5. I want to see what lineup they put out there because the White Sox lineups can always be a magical mystery tour. They have so many different guys, and they're obviously out of the playoffs, so they brought young guys up and whatever. So we could get a few at the end of the lineup that are just like, oh. But if you actually want to take a shot on the under here, the guys that you want out or down in the lineup, you want Montgomery down for sure, because Montgomery is the one guy in the lineup that Strider could strike out multiple times. And it's the books think that and know that too, because 2+ strikeouts for Colson Montgomery is -125. No, just don't do that. There's no value in that one. If you wanted a multiple strikeout guy against Strider, that would actually be at plus money. Kyle Teel would be the one that I would look at, plus 180 right now. Reason being is, yes, he doesn't chase, but he also has very, very poor zone contact and can be prone to whiffing to a four-seam fastball. So, but Montgomery and Robert, both of their 2+ strikeout props are juiced. So, like, I would never take a juiced prop for a guy to strike out twice. There's just no value in that at all. Maybe if you could, I don't know. I'm just trying to see if DraftKings will let me for both of those two guys to strike out twice. Plus 222. Maybe if you wanted to do, yeah, that doesn't even do anything. I was going to say Robert once, Montgomery twice. That's -105. That's still not a whole lot of value. So, but my point here is that when you look through this lineup, you see Montgomery, you see Robert, you see possibly Benintendi because he chases, you see Teel. After that, it's kind of a bunch of 50-50s. And so when I need a guy to get 8, and when I have the whole team that doesn't chase, sans a few of them, and I have 3 guys for sure that I can count on to strike out, that just doesn't do it for me. So there is a chance, of course, that the White Sox traveling come in and just lay a complete egg, or Strider gets his mojo back, which is probably why I'm not going to touch this one. But I just wanted to show this one because the tendency would be, oh, it's Spencer Strider. Oh, he's at home. Oh, he's facing a bad team. Well, let's run to the window and just empty our wallets on the over. And that's always tempting to do. And if you look at trends and if you only look at at recent history, that can tempt you to do it. I'm saying dig deeper because this math doesn't math. Not for Spencer Strider, it doesn't. So, all right, we do have a few guys in the chat here. We're going to go to other looks, leans, etc. And then I'll talk some NFL. I'll go through the chat in just a moment here. All right. Let's see. We got Roger in the house. Roger, good morning, and thank you for joining. You said salivating seeing Yoshi against the Rockies. I would normally agree with you, but it's in Colorado, and some of Yoshi's pitches that he throws with the break, and I'll spare you the meteorological lesson for today, can be impacted by the thin air at Coors, especially the thin summer, especially the thin air at this time of the year, the thin air plus humidity. Not saying that he can't get there. I am probably just going to be off of Yoshi. The last time he was out in Coors, he actually only pitched 5 innings and kind of struggled. He actually threw a lot of pitches that game, struggled to get 6. And so the matchup obviously is decent, but it's hard for me to trust a guy that throws the breaking balls that he does out in Coors. And the Rockies have actually been a lot better at hitting fastballs with some of the lineup changes and some of the guys that they've brought up. So I'm not trying to throw water on you if you want it, Roger. And if you're going to play Yoshi tonight, over is the only way to do it. The Rockies, I don't care who they're facing. They're still no under island by a mile for me, but I'm just not. I'm probably just going to leave Yoshi alone. Kid Keon in the house. Thank you for joining. Saying thoughts on Ranger, Yuri, and Gausman. Ranger, Yuri, and Gausman. Ranger Suarez gets the Mariners. Yeah, I took a hard look at Ranger, but my issue with him is what I always look for with the Mariners, just because it's been their Achilles heel all season, and because of how aggressively they are, because of they can take pitches and then they swing aggressively when they're down in the counts against it, is zone pitching. And while Ranger does spend 50.8% of his time in the zone, he also allows zone contact that's about 3%, or no, I'm sorry, 1.5% above league average. It's the chase that really that Ranger gets that's above league average. The problem with that is that the Mariners don't chase. They actually have been a pretty patient team. So it's always zone contact that I look for. And when I see a pitcher that allows this type of zone contact, then it probably tells me that I should just leave it alone. Yuri Perez is this line to me is a little wonky, and that's probably what's going to lead me off of it, because his hits are down to 3.5 on DraftKings, and his earned runs, which have been hovering between 1.5 and 2.5, are down to 1.5. But his outs are staying the same. So this line to me is pretty correct. I actually think that if you're going to look at anything for Yuri Perez, you might want to look at an over here. St. Louis has not been the anti-strikeout team that they were earlier in the year, especially post-deadline. But overall, I think that what this line is saying is that there's a 50-50 shot of both sides hitting. That's why whenever you see a prop like this that's got even juice on both sides, or relatively even juice on both sides, anything from -110 to -120, which is what this has right now, is that pre-lineup, it's probably about a 50-50. Now, what I can tell you with Yuri Perez is if you want the over for this one, guys that you're not going to want in is you're probably not going to want Pozo in. You're probably not going to want probably not going to want Gorman in, or even Burleson. Guys that you're going to want in are, you're going to want Lars Nootbaar, because not only is he a lefty, he struck out 3 out of 3 times against him, and you're also going to probably want Brendan Donovan, even though he's not projected to be in, but 2 out of 3 times. So for me, it's 50-50 on both sides, which means that there's not a ton of value on either side. And Gausman, fucking Gausman. So I cringe just because with Kevin Gausman, it's the opponent would lead you to say over easily. My problem here is that this is right at average, and this is a number that Gausman is 5-5. I mean, it's like basically right at average. And my problem with Gausman is always that not only do we not know, but oftentimes Gausman himself doesn't know what velo his 4-seam fastball is going to be running at. And normally when it runs 95, 96 or better, he can use it as an out pitch, and which actually makes guys more apt to whiff to his splitter, which runs in the dirt, and his slider, which runs low and away. Reason being is because you're changing speeds and you're changing eye levels. Now, the problem is because he runs his fastball high, 96 high, and then you run like a splitter at like 87 low like this. That can mess with hitters. The problem is when the fastball's not working, it's either both uncompetitive when it's outside of the zone, or when it's in the zone, if it's running at 93, 94, hitters can just smack the shit out of it. So I think that this line is a hedge of both, because this is literally average for everything. I would want to see the Pirates lineup, because they've put some really gaudy lineups out over the past few days. Or now the guys that you are going to want to see in, if you want an over on Gausman, your Tommy Pham would be okay. You're going to want Cruz is on the is on the IR. You're going to want to see Sawinski in. You're probably going to want to see Brian Reynolds in. Guys that you would prefer not to see in are McCutchen and IKF. Reason being is they only have 3 Ks and 24 plate appearances lifetime against Gausman. So not a high strikeout potential for either one of those two. So if either one of those two are out and the other guys I mentioned are in, that could work for me. Cover Kings wants over 5.5 on Yuri Perez, under 5.5 Ks at -105. And also, it's a wild ride with Spence, man. It's a wild ride with Mr. Spence. I saw the line, and sometimes I see a guy who's hovering between 6.5 and 7.5 up like that, but then I'm like, no, I get it. The White Sox people, a lot of people who say they cap strikeout props and look at trend sheets, go by past history a ton. You look at the past history, but it's also because Kiro and Meadroth have been missing a number of those games. So if they're both back tonight and you have this few of chasers, I just don't see it. All right. Kid Keon saying Ranger Trevor. Okay, so we covered Ranger and Gausman. Trevor Rogers. I think, is set exactly where he should be. This question actually got asked in VIP this morning, and I'll say the same thing. Is that I would have a lean on the under because of how Boston has been hitting against lefties lately. My only issue is that they do have, because Rogers is a zone pitcher and they do still have some zone whiff in there. My problem is, even at home, paying -162 to -165 is just gross for and under 5.5. If I'm going to do that, I'd probably rather pair that with something else than try to play that straight up. -160. 575, whatever it is just Moneybag Tone, good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining. Appreciate you. And it says, do you like Strider's outs? Do I like them in what way? No. I would actually prefer under, if anything, because if we're going to get this few of chasers, because Strider spends so much time outside of the zone, if you're only going to have 3 guys who chase at or above league average and a bunch of guys that are significantly below, that would lead me to believe the other thing with Strider that I didn't mention is that 2+ walks right now on DraftKings is -155. So that tells me that he's going to walk 2. Now, for the season, Strider has only hit 8 strikeouts 3 times in 10 games where he walks 2+. The other point here is, since they've been getting their guys back, the White Sox are walking over the last 15 days at 9%. Only 6 Major League Baseball teams are walking at 9% plus for the season. So that number right there is going to lead me probably completely away from any over with Spencer Strider. Am I gonna gather up the cojones, so to speak, to try to run an under on Strider at home against a terrible team? Time and lineup will tell. But this is a real stat, and I'll say it again in case you missed it. Strider's walks right now, 2+ walks are at -155, which means it's shaded to the over, which means they think that he's going to walk 2. Strider has had 10 games this season where he's walked 2+ batters, and he's gotten 8 strikeouts 3 of those 10 times. So 70% of the time he does not when he walks 2+ guys. White Sox are walking at 9% over the last 15 days, and only 6 teams in Major League Baseball are walking at 9% or better. So that would be Spencer Strider for me. I honestly, if it stays at plus money and we get this projected lineup, I would actually have a lean on the under for the outs at plus money. To me, there's way more value than trying to take the over. And I was going to talk about him anyway, but Nowhere, welcome in. Thank you for joining. My guy, Jack Flaherty. Well, with Jack Flaherty, I have just come to the last 4 starts that he's had is I follow the exact same formula, is that if you have 5 guys or more who chase a little bit, which I say a little bit, I mean like 2% or so above league average, then it's the over. If I have 3 or less, it's the under. And then if it's 4, then it depends on some of the contact metrics. So we can just go through, we have some time. We can just go through this right now for what I see with the projected lineup for the Astros. So the Astros lineup right now, and again, lefty, righty, it makes no difference to me. This is Jack Flaherty needs guys to chase. I've talked about this endlessly because he doesn't have a dominating four-seam fastball. So we look at the projected lineup for the Astros, and we have Pena, Correa, and Altuve. And we have Pena, who chases a ton. We have Correa, who chases above league average, and we have Altuve, who chases above league average. So we're off to a good start here. Sanchez, Walker, Yanni Diaz. We have Sanchez, who chases above league average. We have Walker, who chases below league average, and we have Yanni Diaz, who chases a metric ton. So right now, we got 5 of our first 6 that chase. Urias, Smith, and Melton. Urias, Smith, and Melton. Urias doesn't chase. Smith is right about league average, and Melton is slightly above that. So if this is the projected lineup that we get, this is going to be a pretty clear look at an over for me with how often these guys chase. The Astros do make contact. I'm not going to lie about that. But if you're going to give me 6 to 6.5, basically, if you count the guys that are at league average, if you're going to give me those chasers, I'm always going to want the over for Jack for at least a half a unit. It's just too much. There's just too much chase, and Jack makes guys miss when they chase. Kid Kian, I talked about, I don't know if you heard, I talked about Trevor Rogers, is that I'd rather pair it with something else. Under lean, but the juice is absolutely disgusting. I'm not paying minus 175 straight up for a prop. All right. I think I got all of the chat questions. Let's go to other looks, sides, totals, etc. for the day. All right. So a couple ones that I think that have some value. I think that even though it's close to even money, but I think the Mariners have value at minus 102. I think the Guardians have value at minus 102. Again, not plus money, but close to it. The Cardinals have some value at plus 122. And the Rangers have a little bit of value at plus 114. And if you really want to gamble, I'm not saying that I would advocate putting a ton on this, but there's actually value on the White Sox at plus 176. You'd have to hold your nose, or the White Sox are probably better tonight in some like crazy, like big, like, pays 3,000x parlay that you do for lunch money than on their own. So if you're going to do that, just don't do a bag. Game 1 of the Brewers Cubs has some value on the under 8. I think that there's some value on the under 7.5 for Cardinals Marlins. And I think the Rangers team total has a lot of value. And there's always going to be value, I think, on the Dodgers team total. The Rockies pitching staff has an ERA over 9, in some cases close to 10 since the All-Star break. So you do that, you're out in Coors, you have that power. They just got done playing a series where they were kind of nip and tuck with the Padres. I can see them just beating the living hell out of the ball tonight. And a little bit of value here. It's chalky, but maybe to put it with something else. With an alt under 7 for Blue Jays Pirates, I'd maybe go under 8 and put it with something else. Okay. That would be, let's see. Oh, yeah, actually, sorry, Robbie Ray. Sorry, Lauderdale. No, that's actually my fault, man. I didn't get to you. So apologies to Lauderdale because you did ask earlier. And so Robbie Ray outs under 17.5. I think it's a decent bet. I think that it's a decent bet. There's only a 19.2% strikeout percentage in 104 plate appearances for Ray against this team on a back-to-back, and his hits right now are up at 5.5 when they've been down at 4.5. Earned runs are normal, but Yeah, I mean, the only thing that would maybe make me think twice, but I don't even know if it would prevent me from doing it, would be the fact that Giants manager, the Giants pitching staff coach has the whole staff just has pitched Ray till his arm falls off, and just if he's in an inning, even if he goes over 100, hell or high water, they let him finish. So that would be the only thing where I think that there might be a little bit of risk. But overall, he's thrown a ton of pitches and he's facing a team on a back-to-back that can scrap out hits. So I don't mind the look at all. So sorry I didn't cover that the first time, Lauderdale. My bad. All right. Let's talk about NFL training camp. Let's talk about some NFL training camp updates. All right. The big thing for NFL training camp that I wanted to touch on is Terry McLaurin. So the Commanders activated Terry McLaurin from the camp pup list. And why does that matter? Well, the only reason why you'd activate a guy from the camp pup list is if he's actually going to be out there practicing. Now, I'll cover this by saying I don't believe that McLaurin was ever hurt to begin with. I would be shocked if he actually was hurt. So this was a move done so that they could have him at camp and he could hold in versus hold out. Because a hold in is where you show up to camp, but you don't participate in the drills. But you're there and you're, in the, you can be in the film sessions and stuff like that. So you're staying up to speed, but you're not physically participating, because guys don't physically participate because you don't want to hurt yourself and hurt your contract value. McLaurin and the Commanders have been locked in a contract dispute for the better part of 2 months now. He skipped all the offseason workouts. He said he's not going to play for them unless he's got a new deal. The problem is he wants a deal that pays him over $30 million average annual value. And that's money that you give to guys like Justin Jefferson, that guys give money to like the top 7-8 receivers in the league. And the Commanders don't have any problem with that, say this year, but he wants it until like a 4 or 5 year extension. And the problem is that pays him that much guaranteed until he's in his mid 30s. That's well past a receiver's prime. So that production of that value, you're probably only going to get 1.5 to 2 years out of it if you sign him to a 4. So the Commanders have been pretty adamant from what I've read that they want either a shorter duration or less guaranteed money, or like downside where like you pay him a bunch more up front and then it gets lesser later. And McLaurin hasn't been willing to budge on that. So the simple fact that he's going to get back out there is probably a good thing. I would be shocked if the Commanders just acquiesce to his demands. What I think is probably more going to happen is they've come to an agreement where, or maybe they haven't, where basically they're just like, you need to play, or you need to get back out there. Otherwise, your playing time is going to be impacted. Well, if his playing time is impacted, what ends up happening is that then if they're not going to re-sign him, the next team that he's going to go to is he's not going to be able to showcase himself. So I would guess that McLaurin will come back relatively soon. I would also guess that he's probably going to use this season, this is the last year of his contract, to basically bet on himself and try to earn a big deal somewhere else. But it would actually be very surprising to me if he re-signed with the Commanders, because the two sides, from what I heard, are extremely far apart. So if you're a fantasy football guy, which or girl, and most people are, if you're from fantasy purposes, I consider McLaurin to be a low-end wide receiver 2, high-end wide receiver 3. Assuming he gets back out there before the season starts, he's got enough rapport with Jaden Daniels where I wouldn't be like, I don't know if I would invest in him at ADP, but maybe a little bit below. He's got a wide range of outcomes this year, because he could play angry and just say, F you, I'm going to show you I'm one of the best receivers in the league, and go ballistic. But either way, I would be very surprised if they come to a contract agreement, and this is probably his last season in Washington in the Beltway. So a guy who is been out for a while and remains out is Joe Mixon. He was on my "you'll probably thank me later" list. He remains out, and the word is that they're going to be very careful with him in his return, and it's possible it could stretch into the regular season. At first, you thought that it was a foot injury because he had a nagging foot injury from last year that carried over into the offseason. Now there's reports that it's some kind of quote unquote foot ankle combo. I don't know what that means, but basically his right leg is jacked up. Ankle and foot, and it's a very slow healing process. The team is being careful with him. They're not going to rush him back. I would be lying if I would say that that I wanted anything to do with the Texans running game this year. If you set a line for of my 5 or 6 leagues that I'm in, how many shares of Joe Mixon, Nick Chubb, or Dameon Pierce I would have, I would set the line at 0.5 and I would juice the under. I am probably just going to pass on every single one of those guys. There's a bunch of players in there. The offensive line projects to be horrible. They've looked a little better, but still shaky in the preseason. There's so many other guys out there. I don't want anything to do with it. And I don't want to have a guy with Mixon's mileage on the tires and who's hurt occupying a roster spot that I could give to a guy like a Quinshawn Judkins, like Caleb Johnson, like Bashil Tootin, like all these young upside guys. I'd much rather have them than a beat up and aging Joe Mixon. A guy that popped in camp, if you're going to be drafting this week, and this guy has been absolutely stellar all summer. He's dominated in OTAs. He dominated training camp. His team had a joint practice last week with Chicago, and he had 2 touchdown catches and was one of the most off-targeted receivers. Keon Coleman of the Buffalo Bills. Keon Coleman has looked phenomenal. His burst looks great. He's caught everything, even ones where Josh Allen overthrows. He makes circus catches. He just has looked explosive. Now he was a second round rookie last year, and he only was in the top 36 3 times in 13 games. But the Bills have been using him a lot more in their red zone packages as well. And so when you have a dual threat like Josh Allen, draw guys for the run, you can always fling a pass. So with Dalton Kincaid reportedly nicked up and still not looking the greatest, you're going to need somebody else in that red zone. So Keon Coleman has moved up my draft board. I'm not saying I'm going to go like crazy for him and reach like 3 rounds up, but he's a wide receiver 3 flex option that has a ton of upside. And he's especially good if you have a league that rewards like distance catches, distance touchdowns. So Keon Coleman has been absolutely phenomenal since the spring, since OTAs. He looks like he's in shape. He looks like he's ready to break out. Last one to talk about before we get out of here is another guy that he's probably going to be, you're going to find somebody in your league starry-eyed to want him. That's not me, Devon Achane. He's hurt again. Soft tissue lower body injury. And Mike McDaniel said that his injury will be, quote, between days and weeks, if that's specific enough. And that he's probably going to be ready for the regular season opener. Here's my problem with Devon Achane, and it's been his problem since he got drafted. The guy is explosive. The guy has all kinds of juice, and he can take something in the open field and just make guys look silly, right? So he can have big pop weeks. He's also 5'9", 191 pounds. You find me a running back that has carried a running back 1 load consistently at 5'9" and 109. 5'9" is fine, but at 191 pounds, it's not what he's there for, and that's not what he's going to be. His production is also entirely dependent, like the rest of the Dolphins offense, on the health of Tua Tagovailoa. So there's a lot of question marks with Achane, and at his current ADP right now, being drafted as like a low end running back 1, I'm just not that interested right now. I think if he falls a round or 2, maybe I might be interested, but I don't like incurring that much risk that early in drafts. Okay, that should do it. Let's go one more time through the chat and we'll get out of here. Thank you to Lauderdale Owens. Thank you to Gus, Cover Kings, Mom Who Bets, Roger, Kid Keon, Moneybag Tone, Knower. Thank you all. Thank you, everybody. And a reminder, this stream and this show are brought to you on behalf of the Daily Bread Network on YouTube. Please subscribe for all of our daily content, best stuff, NFL stuff out there, MLB stuff out there. We would really appreciate it. Please like, share the video. We appreciate all the love. And we're back tomorrow with 3 more pitchers, more NFL news, whole bunch of content. Best of luck in all your action today. Spin Doc. See ya.